I'm back at our application in the development environment at localhost 8080. Once here, I can very easily see the homepage on the screen. Now, I want to show you a little bug that we have inside of our app right now. If you click on pricing, you'll see the pricing page, but if you then click on the app link up here, you'll notice that the URL changes back to localhost 8080, but we still see pricing on the screen. When we click on app right here, I would have expected to see the main content on the screen update, and we should probably go back to seeing the homepage instead. So it's pretty clear that navigation inside of our app right now is kind of broken. We're going to spend this entire section getting a better idea of how navigation works inside of a micro front-end app. Before we discuss anything around navigation whatsoever, I want you to understand that there are a tremendous number of different ways of implementing navigation. So it really comes down, once again, to you as an engineer sitting down and deciding what are the requirements of navigation inside of your app. And that's what you and I are going to do. We're going to sit down and say, how should we treat navigation? What are the must-have features and requirements of navigation inside of our app? Once we generate that set of requirements, we can then start to think about a design that actually satisfies those requirements. So we're going to go through a list of big requirements in this video and the next. So let's get to it right away. Our first big requirement is that we need to have some kind of routing or navigation logic inside both our container and inside of individual sub-applications. We're going to add in some routing logic to the container so that a user can navigate around and see different sub-apps appear on the screen. So for example, as a user starts to click around, I want to have some routing logic inside the container that decides whether to show the marketing application or the authentication or the dashboard apps. Likewise, once a user sees a sub-application appear on the screen, we then want the user to change between different pages of that sub-application. So once a user loads up, say, the marketing sub-application, I want them to be able to navigate between the main homepage and the pricing page. Once a user loads up the authentication app, I want them to be able to navigate between a sign-up screen and a sign-in screen, and so on. Last thing I want to mention here is that not all sub-apps are going to require routing. For example, right now, our dashboard application doesn't really have any kind of multiple different pages being displayed, and it never will. We haven't really spoken about what's going to go into the dashboard just yet, but let me just tell you right now that we don't have any requirements for navigation inside of our dashboard app. Okay, so that's inflexible requirement number 1. Everything needs to have the ability to have routing. So here's our next big requirement. Our sub-applications might need to add in new pages or routes all the time. So for example, right now, we've really said that our marketing application is just going to have the home page right here at just / as a route. And we've also said that it should have a pricing page at /pricing. But for our marketing application, we might eventually also have some kind of how it works page or about us page or something like that. And those might be additional pages that need to be displayed at new URLs or new paths. So we might decide to add in some new pages to our marketing app. And when we do so, we don't necessarily want to have to do a complete redeploy of the container. So the goal of this requirement right here is to point out that we probably want to have our sub applications control some amount of routing. We might want to say that our container should just decide which major application or which sub app to show on the screen at any given time. But beyond that, the container might not have any additional routing logic. And it will be up to the sub app to decide which individual page to actually display once it is displayed on the screen, rather than having the container tell our sub app which page to display. Okay, on to number 3. Now this is a requirement that we're not going to actually have to implement inside of our application, but I just want to point it out as something that you should keep in mind. We might need to show 2 or more micro front ends on the screen at the same time. And this is going to occur very frequently if you ever have some kind of consistent or persistent element on the screen. So for example, let's imagine that you are building some kind of application like this, where you have some kind of link or navigation stuff on the left-hand side. So maybe this is a standalone micro front-end app on the left-hand side with some links to some other different sub-apps. Whenever a user clicks on, say, messages or orders or products, we're going to load up that appropriate sub-application on the main panel of the screen. So in this case, we've really got 2 distinct micro front ends being displayed. One is the kind of navigation elements over here on the left-hand side, and another is the actual content or the main app being displayed on the right. So this is a very simple example where we just need to be cognizant of the fact that we might need to have different routing solutions that are kind of somehow running at the exact same time. Okay, just 1 or 2 more. The next big one We want to be able to use off-the-shelf routing solutions. So in other words, I do not want to have to build out an entire custom routing library just to get this micro front-end stuff to work. We should be able to use existing routing solutions such as React Router or Vue Router or Angular Router and so on. These are all open source libraries that are extremely popular for each of these different micro front-ends, or excuse me, these different front-end frameworks. And I want to be able to use those different frameworks and not have to build our own custom framework just to handle navigation inside of our app. So if it feels like we have to make our own kind of custom framework around navigation, we are probably doing something not quite so correct. Now, having said that, there might be one or two scenarios where we will have to write out at least a little bit of custom code just to add in support for one or two small things in these different routing libraries. And we will take a look at an example of that inside this app. Okay, one or two more requirements. Let's see, is that, okay, two more. So the fifth big requirement here is that we need to have navigation features in sub apps that are running both in hosted mode and when we are running these in isolation. So in other words, whenever I am running our application, the marketing app, through our container, we need to have some very easy to use navigation stuff. In other words, if I go to localhost 8080, I should be able to see a very specific page from our marketing application appear on the screen. And likewise, if I go to just our marketing app in isolation, which right now is running at localhost 8081, I should also be able to see the homepage at just the route or go to /pricing and see the pricing page there as well. So very simply, I want to be able to kind of test out and develop all this navigation stuff when we are running our application in isolation and when we are running it through the container. There should effectively be no very big difference. All right, last one. So if at any point in time we decide that we need to somehow communicate routing information between our different apps, that communication should be done in as generic a fashion as possible. We're going to very quickly start to see that we do have to start to share some information between our child apps and the container. And we're going to realize that, well, as we start to implement this communication, we have a lot of different ways we can implement it. So we just need to make sure that we just are going to implement this communication in as generic a fashion as we possibly can. And the reason for this is very, very simple. First off, our different sub-applications and the container might have different routing solutions. Second off, even if they are using the same routing libraries, we might decide to use different versions between them. Entirely possible. And if we decide to upgrade the version of the routing library inside, say, the container, I would not want to have to go and refactor all of our routing logic inside of all of our different containers. So in other words, we just need to make sure that if we are doing any communication around routing, we have to make sure it is extremely generic in nature. Okay, so I apologize for all the lecturing here. I know it's really boring stuff, but again, the big reason we're going through all this is that you're going to see that all this routing stuff is extremely flexible. There are a ton of different solutions we can use, tons of different approaches. So you really have to say, what are the requirements of our navigation solution? That's the only way that you can eventually sit down and say, okay, here's the actual design we're going to use. So now that we've established all these requirements, let's start to refine our design in the next video. We've got our 6 big inflexible requirements. So now in this video, we're going to take a look at how we're going to satisfy the first 3. This will be really fast because I think that these first 3 are pretty easy goals to meet. So first off, we need to make sure that both the container and each individual sub-app can have access to some routing features. So for that, we're going to make sure that our container and marketing and authentication and dashboard and so on can all have their own independent navigation library. In our case, for right now, we are really just concerned about our container and marketing. They're both going to have an independent and separate copy of React Router. These 2 copies of React Router can very easily be different versions of the library because we're not going to have any direct communication between the 2 that really relies upon any built-in features inside of React Router. Remember, if we need any kind of communication between these 2 things, it will be done in as generic a fashion as possible. Second big requirement, our sub-applications might need to add in new routes or pages all the time. So to make sure this is the case, we're going to put in some rather basic routing logic inside of our container. The container is going to take a look at some just kind of root part of the URL and use that to decide exactly which micro front end it's going to show. So if the current path is just / by itself or /pricing, the container is going to try to show the marketing application on the screen. And it's not going to try to provide any further configuration to the marketing sub app or try to tell it exactly what page to display. Instead, it will be up to the marketing application to implement some routing logic to say, okay, if we're currently at / or / pricing, we should show the landing page or the pricing page. So really 2 levels of routing logic. Inside a container, just decide which micro front end to show. Inside of marketing or the sub app, just decide which page to show. And then number 3, remember, we're not going to actually implement this because we don't have any pages inside of our app that need to be displayed simultaneously, but if we ever had the need to show 2 or more micro front ends at the very same time, we can use the same style of approach, where we would have our container, say if we are at a root route of just /, then let's try to show both marketing and pricing on the screen at the same time. And it would then be up to these 2 sub-applications to decide which individual page to display. So this kind of 2-tiered routing approach will work just fine even if we are trying to show more than one micro front end at the same time on the screen. All right, so like I said, very quick and easy for these first 3. But the next 3 are going to require a little bit more explanation, and we need to really start to understand some internals around how a lot of these different routing libraries work. And what's more, we're going to have to understand very quickly a really big gotcha around how they work as well. So let's take a look at the next 3 in just a moment. We're not going to cover items 4, 5, and 6 just yet. First, we're going to instead have a quick side discussion. I want to give you a quick overview on how a lot of these different routing libraries work. So I specifically am talking about routing libraries such as React Router or Vue Router or Angular Router and so on. All these different routing libraries can really be thought of as 2 separate parts. The first part is something called a history object. This history object is an object that is used to figure out what path the user is currently visiting inside of our application, and then eventually make changes to that path as well. The other big major component of these routing libraries is something called a router. The router is used to figure out what content to show to the user based upon the current path that they are visiting. In this video, I want to focus on exactly what this history object is all about. So we're going to take a look at a couple of diagrams that are going to more closely explain what's going on with history. All these different routing libraries generally implement 3 different kinds of history objects. When I say 3 different kinds, I mean to say that there are generally 3 different methods of deciding what route a user is currently visiting inside of our application. The first major kind of history, and by far the most popular, is something called a browser history object. This is an object that is going to decide what path a user is visiting inside of our application by taking a look at the URL inside the address bar. Browser history is going to take a look at everything after the domain and use that portion of the URL right there to figure out what path the user is currently visiting. So in this case, browser router would say that a user is visiting marketing/pricing. Browser history would then take that string right there, pass it off to our router, and the router would decide what content to show on the screen based upon this string. The next kind of very common history is called hash history. We're not going to use this inside of our application, so we're just going to skip over it for now. And then finally, there's another kind of history object that is called memory history in React Router, and it's referred to as abstract history inside of Vue Router. This is a history object that stores the current path that a user is visiting inside of memory, or essentially inside of your code. So there's no kind of visual indication of what path a user is visiting. A abstract or memory history is not going to use the address in the address bar in any way to figure out what the user is currently visiting inside of your app. So what does all this stuff have to do with our application? Well, remember, we had said that we're going to have kind of a multi-tier navigation approach. We're going to have some kind of routing logic inside of our container that's going to decide what sub-app we want to show at any given time. And then inside of all of our sub-applications, we're going to have some further routing logic to decide what actual page to display on the screen. So in this case, we're going to be using React Router in 3 separate locations. Each copy of React Router is 100% separate. And remember, the whole reason for that is that we should be able to have different versions of React Router or even different routing libraries entirely inside of each of these different applications. Whenever we create a copy of React Router, we have to tell it exactly what kind of history we want to use. So we can tell React Router to use browser history, memory history, or hash history. So for our application, we need to figure out and decide what kind of history we are going to use in every location. The most common way of setting up navigation inside of micro front-end apps when it comes to history is to make use of browser history inside of your container and then memory history inside of all the different sub-applications. The reason for this is very simple. We've been talking about browser history and memory history and so on. Just to make sure it's really clear, all these different navigation libraries, such as React Router and Angular Router and Vue Router, provide their own custom implementations of stuff like browser history and memory history and so on. Even though they all have very similar names, each library has its own custom implementation. So that means that inside of our authentication app, if we eventually decide to use Vue Router over here, and let's imagine for a second that we were using browser history instead, even though this thing is called browser history here and browser history here, these are two different versions of browser history. One is browser history as it is implemented inside of React Router. The other is browser history as it is implemented inside of Vue Router. These different browser history objects, as we discussed, take a look at the URL inside of the address bar, and most importantly, they eventually change that URL as well. So we are talking about possibly multiple different objects that are trying to change that URL inside the address bar at the exact same time. And each of these different objects are implemented in a slightly different way, and you don't necessarily know or have any guarantee about how that implementation is done. So you could very easily get in a scenario where there's some kind of race condition inside of your app, where you might try to navigate to some location, and maybe this browser history object would decide to update the URL at some point in time, and then this one would also decide to update the URL. And the order in which those updates occur might be slightly different, and they might decide to update the URL in slightly different ways. So if you are using multiple different copies of browser history inside of your application, you might run into some big trouble at some point in time. So to get around that, we make use of memory history inside of all the children instead. So the browser history inside of Container is the only copy of history that will access the address bar and take a look at the URL inside there and eventually update it as well. All these other history objects inside of all of our different children are going to have their own kind of separate copy of what the current URL is. And they can change that, update it as they please, and we will eventually add in some code to make sure we sync that path across all the different copies of history inside of our application. But what's most important is that as these different copies of history decide to start to navigate around, they are not also going to go into the address bar and try to change it in some way. Again, that could lead to some big trouble down the road. Okay, so now we understand our general history approach here. Let's start to implement this inside of our project in just a moment. We're going to make use of browser history inside the container and then memory history inside of all the children. To implement all this stuff, we're going to first take a look at what we've done around React Router inside of our application already, and then plan out the different updates we need to make. I say that because some of the code I gave you actually has some React Router related stuff inside of it. So we just need to figure out what we have right now and exactly how we need to change it. So to get started, I'm going to open up my editor, find the container directory, and then open up the app.js file inside there. Inside of here, if we scroll down to our React component, you'll notice that there's a tag inside of here called browser router. This is a React component that is provided to us by React Router DOM. It creates a router object, and behind the scenes, it also creates a browser history object for us as well. So whenever you see browser router, that essentially means that we have this situation right here. We are making use of React Router, and internally it is creating a copy of browser history for us. So that means that our container is already set up as we want. So we don't need to make any changes right now to our container. Let's now repeat that same process inside of marketing. Inside of marketing, I'm going to find my app.js file. And inside there, unfortunately, you'll see that we are also making use of a copy of browser router here as well. I say unfortunately, because that means that we are currently making use of browser history inside of our marketing project, but we want to use memory history instead. So we're going to have to do a little refactor to marketing. As we start to replace that copy of browser history with memory history, we're going to start to break a lot of navigation inside of our project. So in the short term, as we start to implement memory history inside of here in the next video or two, it's going to seem like we are breaking everything for no good reason. But don't sweat it. Immediately after putting memory history inside of here, we're then going to have a deeper discussion around how we're going to keep all these different history objects in sync and make sure that navigation is a very seamless experience inside of our app. So let's take a pause right here. When we come back in the next video, we're going to start to customize our marketing project and make sure that we make use of a memory history object inside of here rather than browser history. I'm inside of our marketing app.js file. So as we just discussed, we do not want to make use of browser router inside of here anymore. We want to use a different kind of router that's going to use a memory history object instead. So to do so, we're going to go up to our import statement at the very top from React Router DOM. And rather than importing something called browser router right here, which again internally creates a copy of browser history, I'm going to replace it with just simply router instead. A simple router like this allows us to provide the history object that we wanted to use, rather than having React Router DOM create the history object for us. I'm then going to go down to browser router and replace those two tags with router instead. So now we are creating a copy of router that doesn't make its own history. That means we have to provide it some history to use. A very obvious thing to do here would be to create a history object inside this file and then pass it into this router. But we're going to take a slightly different approach. Rather than creating our memory history inside the app.js file, we're going to create it inside of our bootstrap.js file instead. This is done because we're going to eventually come back and customize this history object quite a bit, and we're going to want to write out all the code for that inside of our bootstrap.js file. So we are going to create a copy of memory history inside of here, then pass it down to our app component, receive that memory history, and provide it to this router thing right here. So let's write out the code for that right away. Inside of bootstrap.js, I'm going to add in an import statement at the top for create memory history from history. You'll notice that I imported this from a library called history, not React Router DOM. It turns out that React Router DOM internally makes use of this history library for getting access to all this history-related stuff. So we're then going to use this create memory history function to create a copy of memory history inside of our mount function. So inside of here, I'm going to say const history is create memory history. I'm then going to pass that as a prop down into our app component. So I'll put in history is history like so. I'm then going to save this file, go back over to app.js. I'm going to receive that history object as a prop, so curly braces history, and then we are going to provide that to this router thing right here. So history like so. So all we've done at this point in time is take out the browser history that was being created automatically. We are now creating a memory history instead, and we are creating that inside of our bootstrap.js file. Again, we are creating it inside of here because we're going to eventually add in a lot of code to this file to sync the current state of our history inside of marketing with the history object inside of container. You'll see all that in action very quickly. For right now, let's save all this, go back over to the browser, and just test everything out. Okay, so back over here, I'm going to make sure I refresh the page. I'm at localhost 8080, and then I'm going to click on pricing. Now, when I do so, I do continue to see pricing appear on the screen, but you'll notice that the URL did not update at all. It still says localhost 8080, when it should say localhost 8080/pricing. So it looks like this change we just made started to break something. If I click on app, it looks like nothing happens at all. And finally, if I try to navigate to localhost 8080/pricing, rather than seeing the pricing page appear, I see the home page instead. So it looks like immediately we just broke a lot of navigation stuff. So this is what I referred to just a moment ago. As soon as we make this memory history change, a lot of stuff starts to get really weird really quickly. So let's figure out exactly what went wrong at this point in time, and then we're going to start to kind of fix up some of the different routing logic inside of our app. All of our routing logic is now broken, so let's make sure it's super clear why that is. Okay, so a couple of quick diagrams. So in these diagrams, we're going to figure out exactly what is occurring behind the scenes whenever we go to some address and then eventually click a link on the screen. So I first want to think about exactly what happens when we go to localhost 8080 by itself, and then eventually click on the pricing link inside of the marketing app. So first off, when we go to localhost 8080, we create two separate copies of history. One is browser history, the other is memory history. Both these have an initial location value stored inside them, something that says, here is the current path that we are at right now. Your browser history object is always going to use an initial path right here equal to whatever the path is inside the address bar. So right now, the path inside the address bar is just /, and that means that the initial value of the browser history object is /. The initial value of a memory history object, on the other hand, is always / no matter what. So either way, both of our history objects start off at just /. We then eventually click on the pricing link in the marketing app. That is going to update the current location that memory history thinks we are at to /pricing. we then see some appropriate content appear on the screen. So if I go to localhost 8080 and click on pricing, I see the pricing component. That is because we updated our marketing application's memory history, and our router that is being created inside the marketing app has now responded to this new URL or this new path and is showing the appropriate content on the screen. However, clicking on that link makes no change whatsoever to the current URL or whatever the browser history object inside of Container thinks that we are at. So as far as our browser history is concerned, we are still at a route of /, and that's why we do not see the URL update at all. That's why the address bar stays at localhost 8080. So now let's consider the other scenario that we looked at, where we navigate initially to localhost 8080/pricing. So I'm going to repeat that experiment really quickly. There we go. And once again, we see the homepage by default. So once again, our browser history is going to take its initial path from the URL. So it starts off at /pricing. And once again, memory history, no matter what, always starts off at just / by itself. So then eventually we click on pricing. We're going to update the location that memory history thinks we are at. And now they both think we are at /pricing, and we see the appropriate content appear on the screen. But once again, if I try to navigate away, even if the URL up here changes, our memory history object still thinks we are at /pricing. Okay, so clearly stuff is a little bit awkward and very broken right now. And you might be thinking, why are we using memory history at all? Don't worry, we're going to add in a little bit of code to sync all these different history objects together in a pretty smooth way in just a little bit. The last thing I want to mention very quickly here is to just make it really clear how this navigation stuff is kind of scoped. So right now, our container router is eventually showing some different content on the screen, including a link that is placed into our header. So that is the header up here, this little app thing. If we click on app, that is an element, and its immediate parent router is going to be the router that was created inside of container. So if you click on the link inside the header, that is going to make a change to the history object tied to our container router. At the same time, we have some links that are being displayed inside of our marketing application. Their closest parent router is the marketing router. So if we ever click on a link inside of our marketing application, such as the pricing button right here, the closest parent router is going to be the marketing router, which is tied to our memory history object. So in other words, clicking on a link inside of our marketing application is going to update the memory history only, as opposed to trying to change anything inside the container history or the browser history. So I just want to point out that all these links that are now being displayed are kind of scoped in nature. Okay, so now that we've kind of laid out what's going on, we got a better idea of some of the issues with having multiple distinct history objects on the screen at the same time. Like I said, we need to somehow sync these different objects together. We need to make sure that as we start to navigate around, we detect in other history objects that navigation just occurred and update the current path inside of those as well. So let's take a look at how we're going to approach this in just a moment. One last very quick lecture, and then we're going to write out the code to sync these two history objects. The reason that we're doing another just talking kind of quick presentation lecture rather than writing out the code to sync these history objects is that we're going to very quickly start to tackle two very big topics inside of micro frontends. The first is, well, all this navigation stuff. The second is we need to do some communication between marketing and container. Communication between services, that is definitely something that we need to consider. So let's first kind of make sure it's super clear what we are trying to achieve. So two different things need to happen. First off, if a user ever clicks a link inside the container that is governed by our browser history, we need to communicate that change down to our marketing sub application. And our marketing's memory history object should update its current path. When it updates its current path, that should automatically update the content inside of our marketing application. So as long as we can communicate this change in the current path down to marketing, everything should work as expected. But then we also need to handle the reverse situation. So whenever a user clicks a link that is governed by marketing, or really the memory history, then we need to make sure that we communicate this change up to our container. Once that change gets communicated up, then we need to make sure that our container's browser history updates its current path and reflects whatever the current path is inside of our marketing application. So again, two different problems at the same time. We're not only talking about syncing these history objects, but now we are kind of introducing and saying we need to handle communication from the container down to marketing and from marketing up to the container. So just a quick reminder before we start to write this code out, I want you to remember whenever we are doing this communication, we want it to be in as generic a method of communication as possible. So one way that we could very easily handle this stuff is by taking these history objects and just directly exchanging them between these two sub-applications. That is 100% feasible, but we definitely do not want to take that approach. We don't want to exchange these very complicated objects. The reason for that is very simple. At some point in time, we might decide that we don't want to use React Router DOM inside of our marketing application anymore. We might decide that we want to use, say, Vue Router, or we might decide that we want to use a different version of React Router altogether. If the communication between marketing and history occurs through some complex object, well, as soon as we start to replace the library that that object depends upon, we're going to have to make a change to the other application, in this case, container. So we need to make sure that all this communication is done with very simple objects, with very simple mechanisms. So we're thinking about stuff like simple events, simple callbacks, and so on. Okay, so now we understand the big challenges here. Let's start to focus on how this communication is going to take place in the next video. Let's take care of our first communication between container and marketing. So we're going to first think about handling the case in which a user clicks a link inside of our marketing application. To handle this, we're going to make sure that whenever our container shows the marketing application, whenever a container calls the mount function, in other words, we're going to have the container pass down a callback function called onNavigate. Then at some future point in time, whenever a user clicks on, say, the pricing link inside the marketing app, as usual, we will allow our memory history's current path to be updated to /pricing. That is going on behind the scenes. We don't actually have to do that. But as soon as that occurs, we're going to make sure that we also call this onNavigate callback. And that is going to communicate back to the container and tell the container that the current path has changed in some way. So again, the entire key of communication here is that our container is going to pass down a callback to the marketing application when it calls the mount function. So let's try this out. Back inside my code editor, I'm going to go to my container and then the marketing app.js file. So here's where our container calls the mount function for our marketing application. So I'm going to pass into there a second argument that's going to be an object because we eventually might pass down a lot of different options. Inside this object, I'm going to pass in a function that we will call onNavigate. So whenever we call onNavigate, for right now, let's just do a very simple console log and say something like the container noticed navigation in marketing. So we are providing our callback right here. Now we need to go into our marketing application. We need to make sure that we receive this callback function. And again, as soon as some navigation actually occurs, we need to call onNavigate inside of our marketing application. So back inside of my marketing src bootstrap.js file, here it is right here. Here's where we define our mount function. So as we just saw, mount is now going to be receiving a second argument. It's going to be an object that has a key inside of it of onNavigate. So that is our callback function right there. So now all we have to do is make sure that whenever some navigation occurs, we call the onNavigate function. To do so, we're going to use some functionality that is built into the history object right here itself. The history object that comes back from calling create memory history has an event listener tied to it called listen. We're going to call history.listen. Whenever some navigation occurs, this history object is going to call any function that we have provided to this listen thing. So we're going to put in onNavigate like so. Okay, so now let's trace out the entire series of steps that are going to go on. At some point in time, our container application is going to decide to mount our marketing application. It will create a callback and then call the mount function and provide that callback as onNavigate right here. We then create a memory history object, and we tell the memory history object that whenever the URL changes, or whenever the path changes, we want it to automatically call the onNavigate function. So then whenever a user clicks on the link, we're going to update our memory history, and memory history will automatically call the callback, and we should then see this console log at our inside of our console. And that's the entire flow. So let's save all this, go back over to the browser, and see what happens. So back over here, I'm going to click on the pricing button. I'm going to refresh first. There we go. And then click on the pricing button. And as soon as I do so, I see my console log. So the container noticed a navigation attempt inside of marketing. So now inside of our callback, inside the marketing app file, rather than doing that console log right there, we could attempt to figure out what URL the marketing application navigated to, and then use that to update our browser history inside the container. So let's take care of that last step in the next video. I'm inside of our marketing app.js file. So here's our onNavigate callback that gets called automatically whenever some navigation occurs inside of our marketing app. So now inside of here, we need to figure out where the marketing app navigated to. We need to then take that new path and use it to update the current path inside of our container. So this is the kind of synchronization step. So the first thing we really need to figure out here is, how do we tell where the marketing app navigated to? Well, for that, it turns out that the listen function that is eventually calling onNavigate is going to give us an argument, which we refer to as the location. This is an object that has some information about where we are about to navigate to inside the marketing application. So rather than doing a console log of that plain string, let's do a console log of location instead. I'm going to save this file, flip back over, make sure I refresh the page, and then again click on pricing. So here's the location object. And again, this is what is being communicated from our memory history inside of marketing up to our container. So you'll notice inside of here, there's one property that we really care about for right now. It's called path name, and that's the path that our marketing application is attempting to navigate to. So you and I want to take that path name property and use it to update the current path that we are visiting inside the container application. So back inside my onNavigate function, rather than receiving the entire location object, let's instead only receive that path name property. Now notice that path name has a lowercase n inside of it, not uppercase. I'm going to do one other thing inside of here that right now is going to look a little bit mysterious, but in just a moment, it's going to make a lot of sense. Rather than just destructuring this path name property, I'm going to destructure it and simultaneously rename the property as well. You can rename a property that you are destructuring by putting in a colon and then the name that you want to rename this thing to. So I'm going to rename it to next path name, like so. So now inside of our onNavigate function, we have access to a variable inside of here called next path name. And this represents the path that our marketing app is attempting to navigate to. I'm going to try to console log that out just by itself and just make sure we got all the syntax here 100% correct. So I'll again refresh, click on pricing, and now I see just /pricing by itself. Very good. Okay, so again, we just did a little bit of renaming there. Again, the reason for that will be clear in just one moment. So now that we know exactly where the marketing application is attempting to navigate to, we need to make sure that we update the current location of our container as well. And that's going to be the actual synchronization step. So to update the current path that we are looking at inside of our container, we need to get access to the history object that is being created inside of our container. So the actual browser history object, that's how we navigate around. To do so, we're going to add in an import at the very top of the file. We are going to import use history from React Router DOM. Then right after this ref right here, we'll say history is use history. So this history object right here is the history object that is currently being used inside of our container. So in this case, it is a copy of a browser history. So now we're going to take that history object and update the current path that we are looking at with next path name. So I'm going to remove the console log right there. We're going to call history.push and then provide next path name, like so. This push function essentially means, hey, history object, we want to navigate to this new path. And the path we are attempting to navigate to is next path name. Okay, so we're going to save this and do a very quick test, but then immediately come back and make a very small change to this function. So I'm going to go back over, refresh once again. And now when we click on pricing, our goal is to see the URL update. That would be an indication that we are correctly telling browser history inside of our container about this new URL that we're attempting to navigate to. So I'll click on pricing, and sure enough, there's the update. Awesome. So we've now satisfied one direction of communication. Now, whenever a user clicks on a link that is governed by marketing, we are communicating that change up to container, and we are updating the browser history inside of container. Now, like I said, there's one very quick change we want to make. Turns out that, well, if you really consider this flow right here, we're essentially saying whenever one history object changes, automatically change the other. It turns out that you can very easily get into an infinite loop here, where whenever we tell one history object to update, it'll tell the other, that one's going to update, and then tell the other immediately back that it updated, and we're going to get into this infinite flow where each history object just keeps on telling itself that it just made a change. So to prevent that infinite flow, we're going to add in a little check inside of here to decide whether or not we actually want to have our history object navigate. So to add in the check, we're going to take a look at the current path name that we're at inside of our container application. And we're going to verify and make sure that our current path name and the next path name are different. If they're different, that means that we probably need to do some navigation. But if they're the same, that means we are already at the URL that we're supposed to go to, and therefore we should not attempt any navigation. So to figure out what path we are currently at, we're going to do const path name history.location. So this right here is going to be the path that we are currently at inside of our container app. So then we're going to check and see if path name is not equal to next path name. If they are not the same, that means that we need to do some navigation. We should cut and paste that line inside the if statement, and there we go. So now maybe it's a little bit more clear why we renamed that path name property, because now we have a variable named next path name. That's where we are being told to navigate to, and we have path name, which is where we are currently at. So again, only if these things are different should we attempt any navigation. So let's save this and test one more time. I'll do another refresh. And actually, I'm going to first go back manually to localhost 8080. I'll click on pricing. There we go. We see the new content, and the URL is updated as well. Perfect. Well, we just satisfied one direction of communication. So now we need to take care of the other direction. So whenever a user clicks on a link that is governed by the container, we're going to automatically update our browser history, and we have to communicate that change down to marketing and tell marketing that it needs to update its memory history's current path. This line of communication going downwards is going to be just a little bit more difficult, but at the end of the day, it's going to be very similar in nature in that we're going to eventually call some kind of function that says, hey, go update something. So let's get started on this other flow in just a moment. Before we handle this other line of communication, there's one very quick fix I want to add in, and I'm only putting this right here inside this video just in case you see this error and get really concerned about it. So I'm going to go back over to my browser, and I'm going to take a look at my marketing application in isolation. So remember, that's at localhost 8081. Once you do so, you might see an error like this, cannot read property on navigate of undefined. So this error is coming up for a very simple reason. If we go back over to our editor and find our bootstrap.js file inside of marketing, remember, we are now saying that our mount function is going to receive an options object as the second argument. And then inside there, we are assuming that we are going to get some kind of onNavigate function. Well, remember, mount is not only going to be called by our container app. Mount also gets called if we are running our app in isolation. So down here a little bit lower, we are calling mount, but we are not providing in an options object as the second argument. And that's why we are seeing that error of cannot read property on navigate of undefined. So to get that error to go away for right now, we can add in an empty options object as the second argument. And then in addition, back inside of our mount function, before calling history.listen, we're going to make sure that there actually is a onNavigate function that was provided. So I'm going to wrap this with if onNavigate. In other words, if we actually did provide a navigate function, then let's go ahead and call that listen function like so. Okay, let's save that. Go back over, take a look at localhost 8081, and once again, everything is working as expected. One thing I would mention in addition is that if you click on pricing, again, you're not going to notice the URL right here updating if you're at localhost 8081. That is because when you are running our application in isolation, we only have a memory history object. We're going to eventually come back and make sure that we use a browser history instead if we are running this application in isolation, just to make it a little bit easier to develop, because that will allow developers to see what current path they are visiting at any given time. But like I said, we'll take care of that in just a moment. Okay, so quick pause, and then back over to our main path right here with our container, and we're going to make sure that we are setting up that additional line of communication. All right, let's take care of that other line of communication. So the case in which a user clicks a link that is governed by our container. So in this case, we need to somehow detect that navigation and communicate the change down to our marketing application. This is actually going to be a little bit more challenging for one single reason. If we go back over to our marketing app.js file, remember this is rendered by our container application, here's where we call mount. That is where our actual marketing app is created. When we look at all this code right now, we do not currently have any kind of handle on our marketing app. In other words, we have no way to reference it. We have no way of communicating any values to it. We call mount, and that's pretty much it. The first thing we really have to do here is figure out some way to communicate information down to our marketing application, the one that is created whenever we call mount. To do so, I'm going to go back over to my bootstrap.js file. So this is the one inside of our marketing project. And to have some line of communication from the container down to our marketing app, I'm going to have this mount function return an object. So inside of here, we're going to place some number of functions that our container project can call to somehow update or change our marketing app. So the first function we're going to add in here, and for right now, really the only one, I'm going to add in a new function inside of here that we'll call onParentNavigate. So the thought here is that anytime a parent navigates, we want to call this function. So in other words, anytime the container does some kind of navigation, we want to have our container call this onParentNavigate. Right now, I'm going to add in a simple console log and say something like, how about container just navigated. So then we can go back over to our marketing app.js file. And now whenever we call our mount function right there, remember, we now get back some kind of object that is going to have that onParentNavigate function inside of it. So I'm going to receive that object and destructure out onParentNavigate. So onParentNavigate. So now inside this useEffect, we need to somehow detect navigation occurring. And whenever navigation occurs, we have to call onParentNavigate, and then eventually pass in the new route that we are taking a look at, or the new path. So after that entire mount function call down here at the bottom of useEffect, we're going to set up an identical kind of listener on the history object that we have inside of our container application. So remember, history right here, that is our browser history object. A browser history object has the same exact .listen function that the memory history does that we made use of back inside of our marketing application's bootstrap.js file. So inside of our marketing app.js, after the useEffect, down here, we'll do history.listen, and anytime there is any change to our browser history, we want to call onParentNavigate. So I'll put in onParentNavigate. And the last thing I want to do inside of here, just in case I forget, notice how we are using the useEffect function right here. If you're a little bit savvy with React, you might recall that the useEffect function is going to run itself anytime this component right here is updated or changed in any way. And the way that we limit how often the useEffect function is executed is by putting in a dependency array as the second argument. Right now, we probably only want to have our useEffect function right here run exactly one time when our marketing app is first rendered. In other words, the marketing app component, I mean to say. So to limit how often this useEffect function actually gets invoked, I'm going to put in a second argument right there of an empty array. That means only try to run this function when our marketing app component is first rendered to the screen. Okay, so that looks good. Let's save this. We'll then go back over to our browser and do a quick test. So I'm going to refresh. I'm going to click on pricing. Okay, it looks like everything still works. And now if we do some navigation inside of our parent by clicking on that app right there inside of our header, we see container just navigated. Our URL updated, which is entirely expected, but now we are getting a signal down to our marketing application, something to tell the marketing app, hey, we just did some navigation up here inside the container, just like you'd want to know. So now we need to go back down to our marketing application, and whenever some navigation occurs inside of container, we need to make sure that we also navigate inside of our marketing application. So again, just the exact opposite of what we did a little bit ago. Okay, so back inside of our bootstrap.js file, right here, rather than doing that console log, whenever we call onParentNavigate, because this is being called by the history.listen function, we're going to receive that same exact kind of location object. I'm going to do a quick console log of that location object just to remind you what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to refresh. I'll click on app up here, and there's the history object. So exactly identical to what we saw previously. The property inside of here that we care about is path name. So just as we did before, I'm going to destructure out just path name. And again, I'm going to rename it to be next path name, just to be clear that this is some incoming path name that we might want to navigate to. And then once again, to make sure that we don't get into some kind of infinite loop, we need to make sure that the next path name is different than the path name that we are currently looking at. So inside of here, we're going to use our memory history. We're going to take a look at what our current location is, and we're just going to make sure that our current location is different than the one that we are trying to navigate to. So we will destructure off path name from history.location. I'm going to delete the console log, and we'll say if path name is not equal to next path name, then we probably want to do some navigation. So we'll do a history.push to next path name, like so. And that should be it. So let's flip back over and do a quick test. I'm going to make sure I refresh the page. I'll then click on pricing. We go over to pricing. I'll click on app inside the header, and we go back to our home page. Awesome. So we can now toggle back and forth every single time our URL updates, which is exactly what we want. And if I start to click on my back button, that works almost as expected as well. So you'll notice that there might be just like, well, I guess I got just a touch of lag inside there. To really test this out, I should probably open up a totally new browser tab just to clear out my navigation history. I'm going to do that really quick. And I'll just very quickly make sure that navigating, I go pricing, home, pricing, home, pricing, home. And I'll click the back button a couple of times. I go back, 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 back. Perfect. Okay, so I think that going back and forward works exactly as expected. Okay, so that's it. We've now set up a line of communication in both directions, and we are keeping these history objects in sync. So this is really good progress. Let's take a pause right here and continue in just a moment. The last thing I think we really need to handle around all this navigation stuff is making sure that we can run marketing in isolation and see the actual URL that we are currently visiting. So remember right now at localhost 8081, we can navigate around, but we are making use of our memory history, which means we see nothing inside the address bar. That would make developing the marketing application a little bit of a pain, because developers would be navigating around and not really knowing where they are visiting at any given point in time. So I think that we need to do a little bit of configuration here. Maybe we should say that if we are running our marketing application in isolation, in development, we should make use of a browser history object instead of memory history. So that would allow us to have much easier development when we're at localhost 8081. So to do so, I'm going to go back to my bootstrap.js file. So this is the bootstrap file inside of our marketing project. At the very top where we have our import from history, I'm going to add in a create browser history from history as well. This function, as you'd guess, allows us to create a browser history object. I'm then going to go down to our if statement right here, where we decide whether or not we are in development and in isolation. Then on my mount function, I'm going to say that my options object right here might take in an additional option. Let's call it default history, and then provide it create browser history. So in short, whenever we call the mount function when we are in isolation, we are going to create a browser history instance and provide it on the options object as a property called default history. So then inside of our mount function, back up here, I'm going to destructure off default history. We are only providing a default history if we are in development. So I'm going to say if we were given a default history, let's use it. I'm going to assign that to history. Otherwise, if we did not get one, we will default to creating our own memory history. So that's what the OR here is going to do. If we provided a default history, go ahead and use it. Otherwise, make use of a memory history. A default history is only going to be provided if we are calling the mount function from right here for right now. So obviously, our container could decide to give us a different default history if it wanted to, but right now the container is not doing that. So if our application is being rendered through the container, we're still going to be creating our own memory history. Okay, so let's save this, flip back over, and do a test. So now if I refresh the page at localhost 8081 and click on pricing, now the URL updates because we are now using a browser history in isolation. So again, this would allow us to do a lot more easy development because we can actually see that URL and make changes to it. But if we go back over to localhost 8080, back over here, we are still making use of a memory history. So I can refresh the page and then click on pricing, back and forth, and everything still works as expected. All right, well, I'd say that is a definite improvement for our development experience. So I think that's just about it in the short term for navigation. So let's continue in just a moment.